Ready to dive headfirst into the world's most unbelievable stories? Listen to Most Amazing Top 10, a new video podcast that counts down bizarre facts, jaw-dropping tales, and everything in between. Join us each week as we explore 10 horrifying true stories, urban legends, or unsolved mysteries that will leave you with chills. Embark on a thrilling journey by listening for free and following Most Amazing Top 10 on Spotify. The Ouija board. Some say it's just a silly game, others say it's a gateway to the dark realms beyond. Anyone ever used one? Any strange experiences to tell? Let me know in the comments. I actually have a Ouija board experience, which I'll be sharing in this video too. With all that out of the way though, I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 terrifying signals demons left on a Ouija board. And we're starting off this list with the doll. Ouija boards and dolls, not a good combo. And if the story is true, it makes that even more clear. A Reddit user named Jake Nichols recounted a story of a time his cousin and his friends decided to give a Ouija board a spin. Now, they had this porcelain doll sitting in the next room over, face down on the bed. At one point during the session, they made contact with something, and it listed off Jake's cousin's social security number, which apparently nobody in the room knew except for him. Then the board spelled out the word doll. They rushed to the next room, and when they opened the door, there was the doll, only now it was standing upright in the middle of the room. The group ended up burning the board after that. Next up, we have Carroll Sue Elvaker. This was a very disturbing case that played out in February of 2001. A 53-year-old Oklahoma woman named Carroll Sue Elvaker had been playing with a Ouija board with her daughter and two granddaughters. And during this Ouija board session, Carroll claimed that she had been sent a message from the beyond, telling her that her daughter's husband was a demon that had to be slain. And Carroll Sue ended up doing just that. She stabbed her son-in-law, Brian Roach, in the chest, hid the knife, and they gathered the kids, hopped in a vehicle, and attempted an escape. And Carroll Sue then tried crashing the car in an attempt to take all of their lives, believing her two young granddaughters to also be evil. Now, luckily nobody died here. There were only minor injuries, but Carroll Sue ended up stripping naked, hopped over the highway median barrier, and ran into the woods. Cops found her almost immediately, and she, along with her daughter, were both arrested. Number 8, we have the death of Ernest Turley. This story goes all the way back to 1933. 14-year-old Maddie and her mother Dorothy Turley had been messing around on a Ouija board, and during one session they received a message from a spirit saying that Ernest had to die. Now, because this case is from so long ago, there are various versions of this message and who actually received it, but the most common version is that it was Dorothy who interpreted the message and convinced her daughter to carry out the act, saying the board told her that she needed to be free of Ernest in order to marry a handsome cowboy. Yeah. Sounds like something a spirit from another realm would request of some woman they have no connection with whatsoever. I don't know who you are. I'm a ghost in a completely different plane of existence. But you know what, lady? I think you need a handsome cowboy in your life. That's what I've crossed over into this world in order to tell you. There are also claims that Dorothy had started using the Ouija board regularly after the family had moved into an isolated cabin in the mountains of Arizona, consulting it and then making odd demands based on the supposed messages she received. Anyway, this all culminated with her daughter, Maddie, shooting her unsuspecting father to death because, according to Dorothy, the board could not be denied. Next up, we have Gary Gilmore. Gary Gilmore was sentenced to death after taking the life of two men in Utah in 1977. And Gilmore's reason for his crimes? Well, according to him, his family had been cursed after his mother had made contact with a demon years ago while using a Ouija board. According to Gary, his mother Bessie opened a Pandora's box of sorts when she unwittingly contacted a dark spirit who claimed it would bring misfortune to the family forever. At a young age, Gary began having terrible nightmares, and one of his aunts ended up having an accident, leaving her paralyzed. Another one of his aunts was brutally lost her life. Bessie's mother-in-law apparently lost her mind after performing a seance in an attempt to uncover what the cause of these horrible events were, and Gilmore, he just had an unstable upbringing, it seems, but he was ultimately executed for for his crimes that same year. Number 6, the Carroll family. Okay, folks, cover your ears for this one if you don't like bad stuff happening to dogs. And if you do like bad stuff happening to dogs, I don't want to know you. So in this horrible case, which happened in England in 2014, on Christmas Eve, mind you, Merry Christmas, a lad named Paul Carroll was playing with the Ouija board when he apparently received a message from the beyond telling him that his dog, oh geez, had been possessed by a demon. So he drowned his demonic dog before dismembering it and hiding it in a drain. Sorry guys, I warned you. And it didn't end there. Don't worry though, no animal cruelty for this next part. So Paul was awaiting sentencing and his wife Margaret thought it would be a great idea to use the board again. So she and her daughter did just that, and this time the board told them that they were going to die the next day. So Margaret convinced her daughter to join her in downing an overdose of prescription drugs before attempting to set their house on fire. Luckily, they both did live and were sentenced to jail for 4 years for arson. Next up, we have a story I'm just gonna call Cash. This was posted to Reddit by user throwit_Amita. It goes like this. My mom and aunt used a board after their dad died. He had remarried, but had told his daughters that he was leaving them a few things in his will, including some money. His second wife was the executor and was saying he hadn't left them money, etc., etc. Anyway, Mom and her sister thought it was possible the money wasn't left to them after all, like second wife said. But my aunt was really strapped for cash, and they felt like it was also possible second wife was withholding info and money. You think? They apparently managed to get their dad via the Ouija board and asked him whether he had left the money in his will. It spelt out a 3-letter acronym for a bank and then a series of numbers. Turns out he did have a bank account with money in it intended for his daughters. The account matched the bank acronym and account number. This one spooked me because the details were a surprise to Mom and my aunt. I don't know how they could have gotten that info out of thin air. At number 4, we have the love triangle. It's really less of a love triangle and more of a love mess. But anyway, this case took place in 1930 in Buffalo, New York. A 66-year-old woman named Nancy Bowen wanted to know who took the life of her son. So she enlisted the help of her friend Leela Jimerson and a Ouija board. They asked the board who the culprit was, and the board spelled out "she did it," accompanied by an address. Nancy Brown made her way to the address, and when the woman Clotilda Marchand answered the door, she was met with a hammer to the cranium before having a chloroform-soaked rag shoved into her mouth. Now, the reason as to why this happened has nothing to do with a demonic spirit, really. As it turned out, Nancy Brown's friend, Leela, who helped her with the Ouija board session, had been having an affair with Clotilda's husband, Henry Marchand, and wanted his pesky wife out of the way so she could have him all to herself. She had forced the planchette to spell out Marchand's address. Henry was a real a-hole though, claiming in court that he had too many lovers to count before going on to marry the 18-year-old niece of his now deceased wife. Classy stuff. Number 3, David. In the summer of 1987 in Orlando, Florida, 2 friends, Anthony Allen Hall and Daniel Paul Bowen, along with their girlfriends Bunny Dixon, great stripper name, and Elizabeth Rebecca Town, had made contact with the spirit of a young boy named David through a Ouija board. According to them, David cast a demonic spell on the group and outlined a plan for them to steal a car and some cash in order to fund their trip to Virginia, where they would join the circus. Perfectly reasonable. So the group did just that. They didn't make it to the circus though. Elizabeth and Bunny Dixon posed as hitchhikers as their boys Anthony and Daniel hid in the bushes. A car pulled over, at which point the 2 men popped out of hiding, threatening the driver with a gun. He was bound and thrown in the trunk. They got a whopping $120 off him. Daniel ended up taking the owner's life before the group was apprehended. He got the death penalty. And at second place, we have the cemetery. Cemeteries and Ouija boards. Again, 2 things that do not mix, unless you want something creepy to happen, and I imagine if you're using a Ouija board, you do. So I guess they do mix, in a way. Anyway, this story was posted to Reddit by user Spartan0618, and I really hope it's true, because it's a great campfire kind of tale. The user wrote the following. We were in a cabin in the woods, several hundred yards away, an old cemetery laid almost out of sight. sight. Had it not been for the little outdoor excursion I had taken the morning before, I wouldn't have known it was there. The only two people who knew it was there were my cousin and me. Late in the day, we pulled out an old Ouija board from a closet. We messed around for a while. Then one of our friends decided to ask for its name. It started with an A, then they asked how it died. I can't remember that part, but then they asked what year it died and where it was buried. It said something along the lines of, in the year 18-something, I died in a fire. My body is located in a cemetery down the road. My cousin and I froze. We gave each other a long stare. We told our friends about the cemetery and we went to explore it. Sure enough, there was a grave with his info on it. Finally, we have my Ouija experience. Now, I will say, even after this, I would not call myself a believer in stuff like this, all right? It was kind of weird, and it's something me and my cousin still bring up on occasion, but there could be a rational explanation. But anyway, here's what happened. It was back in high school. I was about 16 at the time. My cousin was in town, so I took him to a little party at my buddy's place. It wasn't really a party, it was just us hanging out. We decided to mess around with a Ouija board. At one point, my friend, whose place we were at, I'll just call him Alex for the purposes of this, started having a strange reaction. It reminded me a bit of a panic attack. He was breathing heavily. I felt his heart rate was up. There was a bookshelf that fell over. I'm not sure if someone bumped into it. You know, in our minds, it fell over on its own. But anyway, his older sister came down and brought him upstairs and was like, you guys shouldn't be messing around with this stuff. And then we pretty much left. Now, after this experience, me, Alex, and another friend in the group that I had a crush on at the time, hope she doesn't see this. I don't know why I had to relay that information, but anyway, we started using the Ouija board in other locations to try and make more spooky stuff happen. Nothing really did. I remember we used it one night on a schoolyard, and the message we got was something like, so, you know, at least we weren't forcing anything. What happened that time, and then we wanted to see if the board would do anything. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know about all this stuff, guys. That's the video. I will catch you guys in the next one.